Hello, everyone, and welcome to this product demonstration webinar, Achieve a 75% Faster Quality Process, brought to you by HiQA. I am Lisa Sterling, your host and moderator for today's session. Before we get started, though, I would like to mention just a couple of housekeeping items. We invite you to ask questions throughout the presentation by typing in your Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, as your phone is muted during the session. We will address the questions received at the end of the presentation. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for playback in just a few days. I would now like to introduce you to our presenter, Rob Edmonds, Regional Sales Director at HiQA. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Rob to get us started.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us in our product webinar. So today, we're going to talk about a couple things. One, obviously, introduce you to who HiQA is, but then we're going to jump into the product and show you how we can plan jobs faster. Simple as that. We're going to save time. We're going to take those laborious quality tasks and make it more efficient to get the job done. We'll demonstrate how we can automate data collection, so getting those inspection results in real time. So now you have the ability to analyze all of that data quicker. Bottom line, it's real time, so it's at your fingertips. And then lastly, of course, hey, we've got data back in the system, let's be able to report against it. So whether it's an FAI or a full submission packet, we're going to show you how we can save significant time getting that reporting out. A little bit about HiQA, over 1,300 customers globally, over 5 continents. We have over 20,000 users. Big thing for HiQA is data security, but also with that, having a collaborative mindset. So let's break down some walls. Let's pull manufacturing and quality together. And then lastly, we're realists. We understand it's your success is our success. So we do have a customer-driven culture. HiQA is really reimagining quality manufacturing management. So pulling a system into an all-in-one database where you can plan your quality, you can capture inspection results and then report against it. And with all of that, that ensures that you're on time, on quality, on budget. Like I mentioned, HiQA is an all-in-one database-driven solution. So we're eliminating those silos of data that aren't connected, and we're pulling it all together into one database that in itself can also integrate with other systems you may have, ERPs, PLMs. So with no further ado, let's jump into the product and we'll give you a look-see at HiQA. Lisa, can they all see the HiQA software?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect, thank you. All right, let's get started. We're going to start from a wizard. And the reason I'm doing this is going to allow me to establish some defaults up front for the system. And when I say defaults, we establish what are called part categories in HiQA. So think of this as an area where for a specific customer or for a specific part type, I can establish defaults throughout the HiQA system, whether it's simply, hey, how do I want my balloons to look, colors, sizes, all the way down to, hey, what reports are required in my submission packet? So I'm setting all those defaults up front. All right, so I've pulled in our 2D print. We also work with 3D models, so either or. But to get started, all we're going to do is we're going to come up here and hit the auto balloon. And do note, we can handle multiple pages. If you have a packet where you need to select certain drawing pages, you can do that. You also have the ability to turn off certain things. Maybe I don't need to balloon reference or basic dimensions. I can turn those off. But we're going to hit OK. And what that's going to do is engage our OCR. So the OCR is the optical character recognition software, something that we developed on our own. It is ours. It is proprietary. I always jokingly say it's not patented. We don't want anybody to steal it. It's the best OCR on the market, bottom line. So once I've engaged that, it's determining the border of that picture. And then once it's done that, it's going through and finding all of the GD&T, all the features on that picture. It's ballooning it, but more importantly, it's also taking that through a digital transformation, right? So we're working with a picture, but once the ballooning process is done, now I've got executionable data in what we call our bill of characteristics. So as you can see, in 12 seconds, we've got 33 dimensions, 23 balloons, and a complete bill of characteristics, right? So I now know every dimension, what type of dimension, the requirement, what are my tolerances on that dimension. And like I had mentioned early on, I set some defaults. So one of those is my sampling rule. I've established my sampling rule as 1 per lot. And again, it could be anything. It could be AQL based. I've also have the ability to establish default gauge categories based on the type of dimension. So as you can see, every linear dimension, I'm going to use a caliper. Now, keep in mind, this is just a category. It's not the exact gauge I'm going to use. But every true position, I'm going to use a CMM. So that's all been established. Again, saving me time. I've already started to establish my inspection plan. Now with HiQA, we provide you many tools so I can continue to use the OCR to capture additional information off of this print. So for example, when I brought in this part, it doesn't know the part number or name, it's just using the file name. But I can use these utilities around the drawing window to capture that additional information. So you could come up here and, hey, I want to extract information off my title block. I just go ahead and select that utility, and then I'm just box selecting the information using my mouse, and you'll see things update over on the right. So now I've got my part name. I can come in here, let's grab the part number. Let's even grab the revision. So the nice thing about this is not only am I getting the information in quickly, but I'm also getting it in accurately. I could have typed that in, but for those that know me, you don't want me typing. I'll fat finger something, then we've got incorrect data in the system. For those of you that need to balloon notes, we provide you utilities so you can do that. Now, by default, we're not going to auto balloon notes because there's no standard around notes. So we give you this utility so you can simply come in, you box select your note, and you'll see it parse the information over on the right. But it also is now included in my bill of characteristics, and it's in there as a pass-fail. So it's going to be on my inspection plan. For those of you that need to track material, we also provide you utilities so you can capture the material requirement off the print. And again, just box selecting the information, and you can see it now changed over to my materials and processes. So now I have my aluminum requirement in the database. Now, anytime you see a pencil within HiQA, it just gives you the ability to drill in to where I can add additional information. The material code, maybe I've got a spec number. Maybe I want my supplier. But more importantly, how about being able to upload the material cert into the database so it'll flow to my reporting? I've got a sample material cert here. Let's go ahead and get that into the database. All right, I already bragged a little bit about our OCR. Let's pick on one of these. So as you can see, Balloon 16 has 3 different callouts, right? It's got diameter, thread, true position, and you're seeing that in the bill of characteristics, diameter, thread, true position. But also there's a multiplier, right? Because there's 4 holes, and you'll see that in the bill of characteristics as well. So at the end of the day, we're looking for 12 results, right? Now, for those of you that run into a scenario where, hey, your customer needs you to identify each hole with its own unique balloon, we have that capability, and all I need to do is multiply out the dimensions. And now I have unique balloons, so I can identify each individual hole. And you'll see down in the bill of characteristics, now that we've done that, now we have all 12 lines. Okay. Now, for those of you that have that requirement and the print has 50 balloons, I apologize, because that becomes a very busy print. All right, a couple more things to jump through here. For those of you that get drawings in a unit of measure that you don't want to work, say I want to work in metric, but I'm getting this print in inch, right? Which is the default that was established before I ballooned the print. Well, if I need to see this print in metric, it's just a matter of clicking on the opposing arrows. Now the print is in metric, right? So I do have the ability to toggle between the unit of measures. I can establish a plan in one unit of measure, collect the results, and then toggle back to the customer's unit of measure that they provided. And again, that's not smoke and mirrors. It's not doing the calculation when I hit the button. Actually, if you remember that first, whatever it was, 15 seconds when we balloon the print, here is the default, which is an inch. But if I scroll over in the bill of characteristics, the conversion was already done, right? So there it is in metric. All right, so here's another nice feature, right? We'll never claim we're going to be 100% on ballooning prints. Prints get busy, things get stacked on top of each other. The human eye has a hard time figuring it all out. But we provide you a utility called whiteout balloons. So when I click on this, it's going to eliminate everything I've captured, right? If I hover over, you're going to see them. But now I can easily identify, hey, we missed this dimension. And it's just a matter of grabbing the snipping tool. And now I can come in and I'm just going to box select it, let the system parse it out. It's going to determine, hey, it's linear, it's a basic dimension, 0.5. Perfect. But for those of you that maybe manually balloon today, this is probably one of your worst nightmares, right? Because now I go from 13, 14, 15, 16, 25, 17, right? I'm out of sequence. But with HiQA, very simple, just come up, click on the numbering, it'll renumber and put it back in sequence. Another thing to note within HiQA, we talked already about a default gauge category, but you can also establish characteristic designators within the system. So let's say this balloon 22 is a key characteristic or a critical quality, right? We'll call it a CTQ. So when I hit save, a couple things are going to happen based on rules that I've already established in my system. So one of the things is I have my balloon just simply changing to a triangle. I want it to look different on the print. It is a CTQ. Let's pay attention to it. But also notice down here, now that it's been established as a CTQ, I've got a rule that says anytime I have a CTQ, change the sampling plan to be AQL based. So those two things happened automatically. So that simple, guess what I've got now? I've got a balloon print, but I also have the ability now to create my inspection plan. So I know every dimension, the requirement, the tolerances, what measurement tool I need to use, and even the ability to capture actuals within this inspection plan and re-import them once it's done. So that would be the most basic way to get results back into HiQA, but we're going to talk more real time as we move through this demonstration. All right, let's really quickly, I want to jump into our gauge management. So gauge management is in the core HiQA system. Of course, we're going to track all the information you would expect, right? All the gauge information. We do have the ability to track location of gauges if you're using our shop floor data acquisition interface. that has check-in, check-out capabilities. But the big thing is we're going to track all your calibration information. In fact, you can see right here, my bore gauge is red, right? Well, it's because it's coming up on its expiration. So we need to jump on it and get that thing calibrated before the 1st of September. Notifications with Engage Management play a huge part, right? Of course, I need to know when a gauge is going to expire, but how about being proactive, right? I want to know 30 or 45 days in advance before a gauge is going to expire. So we have those notifications in place. And do note, for those of you that use a third party for your calibration, those notifications could even go to them. So they know to get a hold of you. Hey, let's get your gauges calibrated. All right, let's jump back over here. And I'm sure many of you do in-process inspections. So that's where we're going to go next. I'm going to go into an area called manufacturing operations. So all these different dimensions are associated with the finished part, but this is where I could start breaking things down into different operations, right? So let's say I'm starting with my block of aluminum and I'm going to rough out that part. That's my first op. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select some of these dimensions. Let's just grab some of these overall dimensions. We'll grab the height here, and we're going to add an operation. So now I can come in and say, hey, this is my roughing op. Now, for those of you that are doing submission packets like a process flow, a PFMEA, control plan, this is where we can start associating the process to the operation. And those reports will now be dynamically generated based on the choices I'm making, right? The reports are already established, but now I'm going to dynamically populate them through these different steps in my planning process, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'll grab my roughing process. Now, within HiQA, we have what is called a process library. So it'll define all the different processes in your organization, but also it'll maintain the failure modes for each one of those processes. So we've templatized that. So as I start building this out, my process flow, my PFMEA are all getting populated based on these choices I'm making. Let's grab a couple more. Let's say we're going to do this, and we'll call this, say, a drilling operation. Just so we have a little bit of meat in our reporting. I'm going to do a drilling, and then we'll associate it with the drilling process. And we'll just add one more here. Let's make this our milling op. All right, so now we've got our Easter Bunny print or Candyland print, whatever you want to call it. By the way, you do have complete control over the colors, but we've got our 3 different operations established. Well, let's do this. Let's take it a step further. Let's go back to that roughing op. So now I've got a print just for my roughing op, and there's the 5 dimensions that I want to pay attention to. But also note, my requirement here is associated to the finished part. Well, this is a roughing op, and I'd like to leave a little bit of material. So with HiQA, I have the ability to come in and let's just grab all these and do a bulk update in which I'm going to say, hey, I want to, I don't know, add 3% to my nominal. And let's even open up the tolerances. Let's say we want 50 thou and minus 50 thou. And just for kicks and giggles, every roughing op, I want to use a rectangle as my balloon shape. We're going to go ahead and apply that. So now I've created an inspection plan for my roughing op in which my nominal values have all been increased by 3%. So I ensure I leave a little bit of material, and my tolerances have all been open. All right, hopefully everybody's following. We're gonna leave manufacturing operations, and I want to jump really quick into submission packets in our PQP. Right, so your PPAP submissions. Let's go ahead and jump in here, and I'm going to create a job. Let's call this, and we're going to make, I don't know, we'll say 100 of these. And notice we're going to automatically create those PQP documents. So based on the part category I had chosen, these are the reports that are required for my customer, right? I have a process flow, a PFMEA, a control plan, and ultimately my FAI. So let's take a look at that process flow. I had mentioned, as we're starting to do our planning, that these reports are dynamically being populated, right? So you can see I've got now my roughing, drilling, and milling. I also have the ability to come in and, hey, let's add maybe some non-manufacturing processes. Let's say we've got final packaging and we're going to ship parts. Let's go ahead and add those. All right, so just like that, process flow is in place. Let's go back to our index, and do note, I could have had my PFMEA created, my control plan created, all of that could have been done. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to walk you through how we build these out and let you see what's behind the scenes. So we're going to go ahead and create our PFMEA, and it's a nice little wizard that's going to walk me through building out that report. Now, one thing to note, if you see my process flow has a serial number, well, that's going to be tied to my PFMEA and my control plan. Reason for this is, should something change in one of those reports, they will be synchronized, meaning you're going to get alerted that, hey, I need to update this report because something changed in one of the other reports. Go ahead and hit next. The other nice thing about the PQP is all this reporting is driven by a workflow, and it can be anything you want. I've got mine set as just a basic workflow with a digital signature, right? So my inspector is going to go ahead and put together a report. They submit it. The quality manager either signs off or sends it back to the inspector. Hey, you need to do some of these updates, get it back to me. Ultimately, I approve it, and now it's ready to be submitted to our customer. You also have the ability to assign individuals or teams for these different reports. And again, I don't have to do it right now. I could come back after the report's already been established. Let's go ahead and get our PFMEA all set up. So in a matter of a minute, I've got a PFMEA. So every one of my processes, my failure modes, and you know it, right? So this is all driven from that process library where we've templatized things. But if I need to make a modification now that it's at the job level, absolutely can do it. Maybe this is an 8 and it'll automatically calculate. All right, one more report. I want to do the control plan, always my favorite. I'm going to quickly go through it. You guys have all seen the behind the scenes here. So let's go ahead and create this. But again, going to point out, control plan is also tied to that process flow serial number. Our workflow, people involved. This is why this is my favorite, right? We went through and we defined those different processes and the dimensions associated with them. So now I can see, hey, my roughing operation, there's the 5 dimensions, one of them being a CTQ, my measurement technique in place, my sampling plan in place. All right. Guess what? Last thing we have to do is let's get an FAI out. right? But to get the FAI out, we need to capture some results. So let's talk a little bit about how we go about in HiQA capturing results real time, which ultimately save you time, right? So one of the methods we have is through our shop floor data collection interface. Let me get logged in here. So this is meant for any kind of manual measurements, right? So, hey, I've got to measure this. I'm using a caliper. Let's get the results in. A couple things to note. If you have barcoded job travelers, we do support that, right? Makes it easy for the inspector to log directly into the job that they're wanting to log into. This is the gauge area where I can come in and check out gauges, right? So say I need a caliper. Well, here's all my calipers. I'm going to go ahead and check this out. And because we're database driven, it knows a lot of the information already, right? I simply have to say, where am I taking it? I'm going to go ahead and check it out, take it to the inspection lab. Now, again, all of this is real time. Somebody logs in, hey, they wanted caliper 1. Well, Joe's got it. Same goes for if I go into the main system and we go into our gauge management. And if I go to caliper 1, we can see Joe's got it in the inspection lab. So again, all real time. Joe gets done with it. He's checking it back in, returning it to storage, and we're all set. All right, let's log into that job we're working on. And again, this is also where people that have seen my demos in the past, they love this because I get to make fun of myself. Anybody looking for a Journey Escape album, they remember the first generation iPods. We have that functionality right there for you. But let's go ahead and log into that job we're working on. And you can see nice little dashboard. Obviously, we haven't inspected anything. So let's jump into that job. And it immediately takes me to the finished part. But hey, I'm working on the roughing up. So let's go ahead and change over to that roughing operation in which there's those 5 dimensions that I need to measure. This is another time to mention we do support wireless gauges. So if you have any Bluetooth wireless gauges, this is flashing orange because it's listening. It's listening for input. But I'm going to do it the old school way, and we're going to enter our value, hit accept, and it's real time, right? So I get real time feedback. Turns green, green's good, moving on to the next. Now, if it was say a snap gauge or a go, no go, that dimension would come looking like this to where I can simply, hey, it passed, hit accept, and we're moving on to the next. Now, should I enter a bad value? It's going to immediately prompt me, hey, wait a minute, this is out of spec. So do note, right, the result hasn't been saved yet because it's giving me the opportunity to measure it again. But if it truly is bad, I can go ahead and keep it failed. And now at the point of failure, I can initiate a non-conformance, right? To where, hey, this is, there's scratched. And of course, this would default to your defect codes. But just like that, I've initiated a non-conformance. And like the notifications we have in our gauge management, we have those around non-conformances as well. So whomever needs to be notified, they're alerted that, hey, this part on this job, this dimension just failed. All right, so that's one way to get data into the system in real time. Another way to do it is through what we call automatic machine data import. So for those that have, say, CMMs, VMMs, FaroArms, whatever it may be, any kind of measurement device that runs on software that will output a results file, we can automatically pull that in. I'm going to try and get the Zoom meeting thing to go away. It won't go away. So I can get at my buttons. All right, bear with me. I got to skinny this thing down to get at my buttons. All right, we're going to go into machine sync, expand this back up. So for every one of your CMMs, VMMs, whatever it may be, we're going to establish a folder on your network. And that folder is where the results file is going to go. And all we're doing is we're simply listening for results to hit that folder. As soon as they do, we're going to go ahead and import that data. So we'll have the results coming in. It's a background kind of routine. Doesn't require anybody to do anything. Your inspector is going to simply run the part on the CMM. It's going to measure all the features. The results file goes to the folder, and boom, it's coming right back into HiQA. All right, to simulate that though, I'm going to manually import some results. And I have kind of a mock-up CMM type report that I'm going to pull in. So we're going to come in here and just from a file, I'm going to import some results. And you'll recognize this for those that have those. I mean, very standard, comma delimited type file, all the different features and the results that we captured. So we're going to hit import. And by doing that, data is going to come in, and now I've got visibility of how we're doing on this part, right? So green's good. We already talked about that. Now, gray means I don't have results, right? So looks like we've got our diameter. It passed. We'll go to the next. Oh, we haven't done our thread. Well, the thread's not going to get measured on my CMM. So this is another way I can get results into HiQA. I can say, hey, it passed. And oh, by the way, I used this specific gauge. Hit save. Green's good. Now, pink is unique. Pink means, hey, you've got results in here. It seems valid results, but something's off. Well, we have what is called results mapping in HiQA. Let me grab all my results here. And if we look at dimension 8, the results said it's supposed to be a perpendicularity, and balloon 9 is supposed to be a linear. Well, they're just flip-flop, right? So this allows me now to reassociate those results with the correct dimension. So I'm just dragging and dropping and associating those dimensions with the correct balloon, right? So balloon 8 failed. Let's take a look at it. Why isn't it jumping? Come on, play nice. Oh, bear with me. Results, editor. Yep, 5 inch, it was supposed to be 4 inch. Yep, it was a failed feature. But now that we have results in, let's go ahead and produce that FAI. So we're going to jump back into our reporting. And as you can see, you can have as many different types of FAIs as you need. I'm just going to simply do an AS9102. We'll go ahead and quickly get through this. You've all seen this. But there we have it. In a matter of minutes, we've got our FAI. So form 1 with all the information we pulled off the print. Now do note these are dynamic reports. So anything here in yellow means I can add additional information, right? Maybe I've got PO number that I need to establish. There's my form 2 and the material we pulled off the print. All the way to my form 3, the failed feature. There's the exact gauge I used for passing that thread that I inspected. Now, if my CMM report would have had the associated CMM, that would have been established in the report as well. That report simply just didn't have it, which is why it's NA. But just like that, I've got an FAI put together. And another thing we'll want to do at this time, right? We're putting together our final submission packets. Let's go ahead and sync materials and drawings. So we'll have our balloon drawing as part of the packet, as well as the material, all the way down to, right, I've got my material requirement. And if you remember, when I established that, I also attached the material cert. So that's been embedded. Now, because we have that workflow, it really acts almost like a project management for your reporting. You can see hey, I've got a 25% progress, in which, you know, my inspector or whomever's in charge of these reports needs to get them submitted to the quality manager for you to sign off. And we'll be, as soon as we hit 100%, meaning, hey, everything's been signed off on, we can go ahead and build the final package, which will consolidate everything into a single PDF, all the reports that are easily submissible to your customer. I wanted to come back to one thing I forgot to mention in gauge management. It's a big part of HiQA, and the reason we have gauge management as part of our core system is for every gauge, we track usage, right? So for this gauge, I can see every part number, job, lot, serial number, all the way down to the dimension it measured, whether it was good or bad, including date and timestamp and who did the measurement, right? So it plays a huge part of traceability, but also keep in mind, you know, little things like a dropped gauge. Hey, I used this gauge, I checked this feature and it failed and I don't believe it. So I grab a different thread gauge and sure enough, hey, it was good, right? So let's do the tiebreaker, grab a third thread gauge. Yep, it's a good feature. Oh, nuts, I've got a bad gauge, right? Well, when was the last time that gauge measured something good? HiQA easily can research that and get right to it, as opposed to, I'm sure many of you have run into it where you're digging through different work orders trying to figure out when was the last time that thing measured something good. All right, that's the end of the overview demonstration. So let me jump back into the PowerPoint, and we're going to cover a couple more things here. So again, HiQA, as we evolve the 360, currently we are strictly on-prem, but we are going to move to a cloud-based system as well, right? So next year, you'll be hearing about HiQA as a SaaS model. But do note, everything's based around security. So it'll be hosted in AWS GovCloud. There will be end-to-end encryption, as well as obviously ITAR compliant. So many of our customers are ITAR compliant. We have to be that way. So it's at the foremost of our thoughts, ensuring that. The other big release will be our supplier quality. So picture being able to plan out a job, pass it on to your suppliers. Basically think of it as like now your suppliers are an extension of your own shop floor. So more to come on the hub side of things. The other thing I mentioned a little bit about being able to integrate with other systems. So HiQA does have a RESTful API that allows you to integrate with any other software that has an API. So whether it's an ERP or an MES, whatever it may be, we have the ability to integrate to your existing systems. And of course, can't fail to mention, you know, we put our money where our mouth is in terms of support. We are a subscription-based software. We understand we have to earn your business year over year. But as I said before, your success is our success. So we're going to invest in your success for sure and make sure that you get the most out of the HiQA solution. All right, to recap, we can simply help you do things faster, right? Planning a job with our auto ballooning 5 times is probably understated. For many of the companies that I've spoken to over my 3 years with HiQA, it's probably closer to 10 times faster for those that have to manually balloon. But also being able to capture your inspection results real time. Let's get those results back in so now you can assess things and understand, hey, how are we doing, right? Where can we improve? Let's capture, you know, failed features early in our process as opposed to at the very end. And then of course, once we've got results into the system, once we have that data, let's do a PPAP submission in minutes rather than, for many of you, weeks, right? All right, Lisa, that's the end of my show. Hopefully I did okay time-wise. Didn't burn up all of our time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rob. Okay, let's get started. We did have a couple of questions come in while you were presenting, so let's take a look.
Good.
Let's see, the first one says, do you offer service in Spanish?
So I know our 360 product, when it gets released, will be in Spanish. The one thing I can say is all of our support, so whether it be our HiQA Academy courses, which are online courses that provide you the foundation of how to use HiQA, that is available in Spanish. We also have one of our professional services rep is fluent in Spanish. In fact, he spends a portion of his time in Mexico. So we have that available to you as well.
Okay, great. Here is another question. It says, where are you getting all of the tolerances from?
Yeah, so let's do this. Let me jump out. So if the print itself if the feature has a tolerance, that is what we're grabbing. But if the feature doesn't, say a basic or reference dimension, right, we're going to what we call a default tolerance table. Let me get back to my core drawing here. So where that is established, and all of this is in place before I went ahead with ballooning, is I can establish my default tolerance table. And no, you can have as many as you want. You can see here I've got, customer specific tolerance tables in place. It could be even part specific. So very easy to establish those tables. And again, that's something that's done prior to actually ballooning the print. More questions?
Okay, it says, here's another one. We currently manage gauges in Excel. Do we have to enter all of our gauges into HiQA manually?
Thankfully, no. For those of you that do that, so do note, built right into the HiQA system is the ability to import gauges, whether it's from Excel or even an undefined format where you can map to the corresponding headers within the HiQA system.
Okay, perfect. It looks like there's just one more question, and we'll go ahead and conclude with that. It says, how long does it take to get up and running on the HiQA software?
Ooh, loaded question, Lisa. That's loaded. Let me say this. Within a week, you could be auto ballooning, but the reality is, depending on how much of the HiQA solution you're going to implement, on average, I would say give yourself 3 months. 90 days, no need to rush, no need to panic. You've already got a day job. Now you're taking on this additional task, but it really is based on your resources. We can move as fast as you want, but I always tell people when they ask that question is, hey, give yourself 3 months and you'll have the system up and running and everybody fully educated on how to use it so you can immediately start benefiting from saving time.
Excellent. Okay, well, I just want to remind you all that we are recording the session and it will be available via email in the next couple of days. And thank you again to Rob, and thank you for spending the time with us.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you so much. If you'd like to see another demonstration, feel free to reach out. We're going to put our contact information right here. We offer personalized one-on-one demonstrations as well, so don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy your day.